Hi, and welcome to a short video showing you how to use the interrupt policy in Gravity.io. Okay, so let's head over to API Manager console in Gravity and let's create an API. V4 API, I'm going to call it 204. Let's just do 204 interrupt policy. Okay. Now let's give it a version number. Now let's validate proxy. Okay. Let's give it a demo endpoint. Just going to use the Gravity Echo endpoint there. Cool. Validate. Okay, save and deploy. Okay, so now what we've done is we've got a API there. Let's just make sure that it's working. Yeah, it's working. Okay, cool. So now what we've got is we've got a API which is called interrupt. Now what we're going to do is go to entry points, and first of all what we're going to do is create a response template. Now this is a great way of overriding default responses, and what I want to do is create a response for the interrupt. So an interrupt policy is all about like having a line in the sand for your API to say that if something's gone wrong, you're checking what's happening and you want to interrupt that API request following a check to stop something from hitting the back end if the conditions aren't right. And that's a super important policy, and obviously you can use it in a number of ways, but essentially you're protecting your back end services from actually having invalid attempts at hitting them. Okay, so what we're going to do is create a response template. Let's call it, let's give it a custom response. So my interrupt attempt. Let's just save that somewhere so I remember it. My interrupt attempt. Okay. Let's just edit that, and I'm just going to give it a status code of, let's say, bad request, and I'm going to give it a custom body. So I'm going to say interrupted successfully. Okay, so now what we've got is a response template called my interrupt attempt. It's got a 400 code and it's got a body there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is add a policy, and we're going to say flow name is just default, the one I always use. Going to add an interrupt policy there. Interrupt, let's go to there. Yep, that's the one. And first of all what we're going to say is we're going to use our key for our response template. And this is just an extra message that you can add for that particular interrupt. So let's call it extra message 1. Okay, so now what we've got is a trigger condition true. So I definitely want to interrupt the API just to show you as a demonstration. So now let's save that and deploy that. And now what we're going to do is head over to Postman and let's fire that API again. And you can see here that this actually interrupted true. So it's got a bad request as we asked for, and it gave you an interrupted successfully. Okay, so you've got that response template being hit and the interrupt firing. Now if you go back to here and let's change that to false so it's not firing. Okay, now deploy, and now if we go back to that, it shouldn't fire because we've forced it to false. And now what you've got is the ability to hit that backend endpoint. So what have we achieved there? Well, we've got a way of stopping an API executing depending on a condition being met. Here we're forcing it to true or false, But in the real world, you'd actually have a trigger condition using expression language, which is actually checking a context attribute or a request header, such that you can control of access to that backend endpoint. Hope that helps. Any questions, please come back to me. Thank you. Bye.